Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Distribution Strategy Group event, the Technology Leader Panel, the Distributors Technology Dreamstack. My name is Ian Heller, Chief Strategy Officer at Distribution Strategy Group. I will be your host today, and we have two wonderful guests. We put a lot of prep in. This is going to be a great call. So in a couple of minutes, I'll introduce Jason Nias, who's the President and General Manager of North America for Shopware, and Dave Getty, who's the Group Vice President of Product Development for Epicor. So I'm very excited to have that conversation with them. But first, let's do just a little business, pay some bills. So let's talk about the upcoming event, Applied AI for Distributors 2026. It's the largest and the only major live event about artificial intelligence for the distribution industry. It's our fourth annual event. It's June 23rd through 25th at the Chicago Marriott O'Hare. You're not going to want to miss it. You're going to see some incredible new breakthrough things in AI for distributors. Then there's some special workshops to pre-show. We've got the future of AI in distribution presented by my business partner, Jonathan Bine, PhD. And then Brian Hopkins and Nick Pericles will be doing a couple of post-show workshops, one on building your AI roadmap and one on building AI agents. The QR code is there. Take a look at that or go to appliedai4distributors.com to register. This show will sell out. We are beyond the limits of this property. So you're going to have to sign up early if you want to come. Don't miss it. It's really going to be special. We're very excited about it. Some of the speakers that we have are just incredible. Jeff Kroom is a distinguished engineer, easy for me to say, at IBM and has a PhD in cybersecurity. He's brilliant. You can see him on YouTube all the time. And he does an amazing job talking about cybersecurity in the age of AI, and things are changing fast there. Matt Sigelman is the president of the Brennan Glass Institute, who focuses on analyzing the job market. He's going to talk about how AI is going to impact the job market. That's obviously top of mind for a lot of people. Johnny Leroy is a SVP and Chief Technology Officer at Grainger. He's going to be talking about how continuous improvement meets AI. You're not going to want to miss that. We had Brian Walker from Grainger there last year, and these guys have been so generous with their time and have so much to share with other distributors. Then, of course, Nick Pericles, who I mentioned, Stu Tisdale, who's SVP and Chief Experience Officer at the multi-billion-dollar ADI Global, and Dwayne Roberts, who's the president of Summit Electric, are going to be talking about applying AI in real distribution companies. And then Alex Chalsowski, who's everybody's favorite economist, talking about the economic outlook through an AI lens. And then Brian, of course, who's become a world-class AI expert, our COO, and I'm proud to say a friend of mine who's going to be talking about doing the AI roadmap workshop. So you don't want to miss that. You can also learn about our own software products. So we have three of them. Customer Experience RX is a Net Promoter Score software product designed just for distributors. It's like an MRI on your business from your customer's perspective that gives you all the detail on where you're performing well and where you're not. Employee Experience RX, that's an MRI from your employee's experience. So you want to be a competitive employer these days, and this will really help. Demand RX will tell you estimated sales potential by product line for your products and your customers and prospects. Go to distributionstrategy.com/software to learn more. Woo, that's a lot to cover, but well, let's get to the best part of the show, which is where I get to bring in my guests, Jason Nias, President and GM of North America for Shopware, and Dave Getty, Group Vice President, Product Development at Epicor. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Great.
Excellent. Thrilled to be here.
Good. Well, we're thrilled to have you back, Jason. I know you were here several weeks ago. Dave, this is your first time with us, but let's start with some introductions. Jason, we'll start with you. Give us the tour of your background and go into a little bit of detail about Shopware, please.
Let's do it. All right. So first of all, I'm a reformed B2C e-commerce guy. I've been in e-commerce for 25 years, and in the early part of my career, I remember people talking about B2B is going to be the next big thing in technology e-commerce. And this was, the 20s and the 2010s. And the reality of it is that was something that e-commerce B2C companies say because they want the market to come to them. And they weren't building out new features and innovations that really speak to the distributors and the perils and challenges of how they operate their business. And so I joined Shopware about 3 and change ago, because we are a commerce platform built for exceptions. We are a platform that gives you 75–80% of what you need out of the box, but the ability to customize and configure to your heart's content to get exactly what you need. And that value prop has really lent itself nicely to B2B and specifically distributors. And we'll unpack more of that in a bit. We're thrilled to be on the call because number one, we value the relationship with distribution strategy. Thanks again for having us, but also Epicor P21. We've got a bunch of customers we share in common, and I'm going to bring some of those examples into today's chat. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, we're so glad you're here. Dave, your turn. Please tell us about you and, of course, Epicor.
All right. Dave Getty, GVP of Product Development for Epicor. We focus on the businesses that make, move, and sell from manufacturing, distribution, through retail. I lead specifically our distribution and building supply groups, the development teams. I came from a business called Profit 21. Started there about 33 years ago. Got bought by a company named Activant and then merged with Epicor. But throughout that, I spent the totality of my career creating software for durable hard good distributors. I was one of the 3 people who started writing the Profit 21 application from scratch a number of years ago. We've evolved it over the years. It's web, cloud, AI infused, and I've been with it every step of the way, and super passionate about working with our customers, our distributors.
That's awesome. Great. Okay, so to the audience, if you have questions, please feel free to plug them into the Q&A, and you can join the discussion if you'd like. I'm going to stop sharing here. All right, let's jump into some questions. I got a few for both of you, and then we'll go into some questions sort of one at a time. Let's start with the title of this webinar, which is the Distributors Technology Dreamstack. So what defines a technology Dreamstack for distributors in 2026? Because I think the answer is changing. Dave, you want to go first?
Sure. Number one, I would say just your table stake items, web and cloud, right? Super important. I would say cloud-friendly extensibility tools, meaning the tools that you can use to configure and add processes to your system. Being in the cloud shouldn't mean compromise in terms of creating value-added IP, intellectual property. Embedded BI, not just a standalone system, a business intelligence system that can bring insights into the ERP system where the people need it, when they need it. Strong e-commerce. According to Harvard Business Review, businesses that add e-commerce often see a sales uplift of 15 to 35% in the first year alone. EDI, as old as it is still growing and evolving and as important as it's ever been. And perhaps most importantly in 2026, a solution that leverages AI to make your employees more productive.
Fantastic. Excellent. So, JC, you want to take a crack at what a technology Dreamstack for distributors means in 2026?
Absolutely. All right. So for distributors, one of the things that we very much acknowledge and understand is how important the role of the ERP is. It is the primary system of record, and all of the decisions have to have strong compatibility for you to be able to use the ERP as the system of record for things like pricing and customer records and booking and all those things. So the Dreamstack has to have compatibility with the ERP as 1A on your list of what you can buy.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of people buy a lot of things that don't simply connect back in, and you've essentially built in disparate systems. So that to me, obviously we love P21. We think it's fabulous. There are others as well. Regardless of what you buy, you have to make sure it works. The second thing that I think is really important is that you find tools that enable your sales reps digitally. So today there's a bunch of research. Salesforce is probably the primary source for a lot of great sales information. But what it says is distributor sales reps spend 2/3 of their time not selling. Okay? And so then you ask yourself the logical question, why are they spending only 1/3 of their time selling and 2/3 not? And it's because of the inefficiencies we built into the process. They have to babysit orders. They have to follow up. They have to change things in systems to make sure it works. There's a whole bunch of inefficiencies. So to me, you got to find tools that win back and fight back for those sales reps to make them more digitally enabled. The third thing on my list is buying technology that's actually purpose-built for your use case. And so there's, in my world, and I live through it, there's a lot of B2C businesses that say we do B2B and distributors too. And the fact of the matter is they really don't. And when you get into the core use cases as to what you need and how you want to operate your business, it's really important you find someone who has that focus and has kind of scars on their hands from doing it. So Dreamstack includes platforms that specialize in B2B. The third, I don't know what number I'm on, is actually something that relatively rarely gets talked about, but it's how you pay for it. A lot of companies try to charge revenue shares or subscription fees, and you've heard a lot about the SaaS I can't say it. Basically, that SaaS is in a lot of trouble in the eyes of Wall Street because of the way that they deliver value. Well, part of the way most SaaS businesses charge is a revenue share. For a distributor who survives on thin margins, anything that hits that OpEx line is really challenging. So your Dreamstack should include software that is licensed, not a revenue share. And then finally, and I think Dave hit on it a little bit, it's around data sovereignty. You got to be able to have your data to be able to be, you got to have control of it. You got to make sure other people aren't benefiting from your experience, and you've got to be able to put it where you need it to manage your business. So the ability to extract information from all your systems to tie it into where you want to control and run your business. So to me that, and then you hit AI. One of the things, the last point I'll make, is that you want to check the born on date on the technology that you're buying. A lot of the stuff and systems that people are buying are 15, 20 years old. And those systems, although they're very capable, probably very solid, aren't built for tomorrow's context. And so if you want to be ready for AI, don't buy a system that was developed in the year 2000, because it simply won't be. So that'd be my last point about Dreamstack. Now I'll shut up.
Yeah, no, I think those are good points. You know, it's funny because there's a balance. When I spent most of my career as an operating executive in different distribution firms, and I would get a lot of calls from technology companies. A lot of them were VC-backed startups. And sort of a test question for me was, how solid is your financial position? And if they answered in terms of, hey, we just closed a Series B and we've got 18 months of runway, I wasn't interested, right? Because that's the other side of that. It's old technology, it's risky technology. And so I think it's that balance of, hey, I need breakthrough technology, but a lot of times I'm better off getting that through established vendors.
True, but I think there's a middle ground, if I'm being honest.
Agree.
So you've
Right.
got 20-year-old software and 1-year-old software. There's
Sure.
a bunch in between. And so
I
as an
agree.
example, Shopware, our product we're on is 6 years old. So that's old enough to have wear and tear, but
Completely
new
agree.
enough to be modern.
Yeah, completely agree. Right. But you're selling based on real capabilities in a real product.
That's right.
So, okay. So let's go back over to you, Dave. How do you think distributor technology priorities have changed over the last 5 years?
Yeah, so I think that cloud has definitely changed the priority list. I can't remember the last time a distributor asked questions about the technologies we use. Do you use .NET? What load balancers we use? They no longer care because we all manage that stuff. Now it's, I think, a lot more around extensibility. With my on-prem system, I could update the system using SQL directly. With my green screen system, I had access to the code. Like, how do I create the IP that I want to have in your cloud? Can I still access my data in the cloud? Can I still use my existing data warehouse in the cloud? And really the answer is yes to all this stuff. You can have access to your data and you can create the IP that you want to add. You just do it using tools that help keep you secure and compliant with best cloud practices.
Got it. What would you add to that, Jason?
Well, I think that's exactly right, Dave. I'll take a different angle on it, because I think if you're living in the world of the distributors, you acutely feel the economic impacts over the last 5 to 6 years, right? Obviously, we had COVID, which did a bunch of things, good or bad. We had the cost of labor go skyrocket. We have the cost of materials increase. We have tariffs. We have the cost of capital going up and now coming back down. These are things that when you're sitting in the shoes of an operator of a business, those things mean I need to be more efficient to control my destiny. And so the questions and things that we get in sales cycles are around how am I able to do more with less? How am I able to extract a lot of costs from other places so that I can be more efficient? How can I give my team 2 new tools so they travel less but make more and hit their numbers? So to me, it's really a lot more sensitivity around the business dynamics, around what they're feeling in their P&L.
Okay, and I think there's this shift from modernization projects to sort of continuous digital evolution, right? Where You're not doing tiers every 10 years. You're constantly upgrading. And that is becoming more important than ever. How are you seeing that shift, Dave? And how do you advise distributors on how to adapt to this new world?
Yeah, absolutely. For newer systems or even older systems that have crossed the chasm from maybe a green screen or a desktop technology to a new web-enabled service-based architecture, the mindset starts to shift from modernizing applications to upgrading components and services. You can upgrade a user interface without having to change any of the underlying logic that computes prices and rebates and commissions. Means that we can move faster and take on increasingly bolder initiatives while keeping the level of risk under control. So you can start to bring in new modules, filling white space, introduce new technologies like AI, and do so and keep up with the speed of business for distributors.
Got it. What are you seeing, Jason, in terms of shifting from sort of modernization projects to continuous evolution?
Yeah. It sucks following Dave because he takes all the good answers first and then I got to go next. But I have something actually. So I think this is a very healthy trend. I think it's the right kind of thing for a business. And we're actually seeing quite a few businesses that were kind of founder led, and now the next generation of leaders are taking kind of control of those companies. And it's leading to a whole bunch of the right kinds of things, which is this digital evolution kind of mindset. And there's a couple of things I'll point out. The first is the rise of some of these iPaaS, integration platform as a service offerings. These are really big because what they do is they build an agility for you to be able to change out systems and not have to go through these massive forklift upgrades and changing of systems. So iPaaS.com, Patchworks, there's a bunch of great ones. The second thing that we've seen is the influence and impact of agencies to ride along. In the world where you do these big modernization projects, you hire a system integrator, they stand it up, and they walk away in a lot of cases. What we're now seeing is more long-term relationships that they not only help with standing up the technology, figuring out what to modernize next, but also around the psychological change management required when you make change. Who moved my cheese is a big concept, So in the world of how these businesses operate. So to me, that's the thing I'd add to Dave's point, the rise of the iPaaS and the ever importance of the right type of agency.
Got it. Okay. Well, we'll start with Dave one more time, then I'll start with you on the next one, Jason. So Dave, and I think this is important for all technology, but it really starts with ERPs. How do you align your technology architecture with your business strategy?
Yeah. So my advice would be make sure that the investments that you're making are in order of the highest criticality to your business, not based on the easiest, quickest, or cheapest things to do, but the ones that move the needle most to get you positioned for the next 5+ years. Whether the investments contribute to top line growth or introduce efficiencies that reduce your costs, if you pick the technology that most closely aligns with your organizational goals, you're going to have the best chance of maximizing your profits and getting a return on that investment.
And what do you think, Jason? How do you advise distributors to align their technology architecture with their business strategy?
Yeah, again, it's really hard to follow Dave because my answer would be almost identical. But, to me, this is really one where it's really, really common that people overbought software and they essentially have a whole bunch of systems that do similar things. And the Venn diagram has a lot of crossover. And so when we go in and take a look at architectures, we try to analyze what tech do you actually need? Are there alternatives that can do this better, faster, cheaper, that are more modern? And really kind of get people to an end state that they can live with where they're not overpaying for software. It's kind of part of our ethos.
Okay, so let's give you a couple then. One is, how do you balance innovation with operational reliability?
Yeah, I think this is the perfect example around the use of AI today. In the B2C clients, we do have some B2C clients as well. And in those use cases, these guys are experimenting every day with AI. And their motto is go fast and break things, really Silicon Valley-esque. And boy, we have more B2B clients than B2C. And those customers are wait and see. And if you zoom out and you say, why are these fundamentally people who are both dealing with e-commerce looking at the world very differently? And it's in a B2B world. Again, everything goes back to the ERP where everything has to be precise. The way that you do pricing, rebates, and commissions have to be perfect. And so, inserting new innovation, new agents to do a bunch of things might be well and good on different aspects of the kind of the value chain. There's certain aspects of yours where perfect computing is all that is expected and required. And so when we talk about the balance between new innovation and reliability, or operational reliability, it really comes down to, is this a system of record, ERP, or is it a system of differentiation, your front end, your marketing, your storytelling, your imagery, that kind of thing. And we guide people towards testing and learning and playing around systems of differentiation.
Got it. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. I'm going to skip over the next one because I feel like we've covered it. But so, Dave, let's go over to you and say, with technology moving faster than ever, and AI increasingly enabling applications across distributor enterprises, and we're seeing this like at our upcoming show. There's really no part of a distributor's enterprise that's untouched by AI anymore, at least potentially. And you have to choose to put it in, but it seems like that environment, that a robust ERP is a core system to tie it together, is more important than ever. And I think Jason really said as much. Are you seeing that priority of state-of-the-art ERP increasing over time? And are people more concerned than ever about, hey, I've accumulated too much technical debt and I need to get my ERP straight so I can get this other stuff straight? And what are the other, applications that make up sort of this must-have foundation to your technology stack?
Yeah, so I think that one of the most sobering statistics in the ERP space is that most distributors are only using about 25 to 30% of the system that they purchased. So activating unused capabilities and modules is a great way to increase the ROI you're receiving on your ERP investment. Depending upon your provider and their capabilities, I'd be thinking in terms of, tapping into advanced inventory forecasting, CRM, WMS, document management with AP automation, ACH, lockbox, rebates, and consignment. The value-added services that help to distinguish your business from simply pick, pack, and ship. I would also ask you to consider investing the time and resources to get your team properly trained on these modules, whether it be from the provider itself or from other certified professionals, to minimize the mistakes made in the acclimation and that expansion process.
And there's this constant decision point between the all-in-one system and the best of breed. And Jason, I'll ask you to answer this in a minute. Sorry to make you follow Dave again. But Dave, how do you, what's the advice you give to distributors on, hey, when do you rely on the all-in-one or the ERP versus a best of breed?
Yeah, so I think that best of breed is a very viable strategy. Certainly not something to shy away from. I think there's some good practices to consider. I think one is that, like, if you have too many third-party applications cobbled together, you're going to have some disjointed workflows. The different user interface and navigability systems of each of these products is going to create a jarring experience for your employees. However, if the distributor has a well-defined 3-year plan and key components of that growth strategy are predicated upon having specific software capabilities, then seeking the best of breed solutions in these areas is a great idea that's likely going to bring a return to your business. So I guess my bottom line advice would be just be surgical about how you apply them and where you apply them, so you have the capabilities that you need and you have that cohesion that you need as a fully functioning system.
Jason, what do you think? Best of breed versus ERP?
Yeah, best of breed versus best of suite. The answer is absolutely always it depends. But I'll give a couple of guiding principles that I think help you look at the problem if you're a distributor. The first is, what is the primary way that the vendor you're talking to makes money? And when you really unpack that, what you'll see is some things they do as a primary go-to-market mission, and some things they do as a hobby because it's convenient or easy for them to do. This is a non-related industry example, but McDonald's is really a real estate company. Okay? They sell burgers as a way to make more money in real estate. Shopify, an amazing company, is really a payments company. 3 out of every $4 they make is off of payments. 1 out of 4 is in commerce. And so when you're looking at what kind of technology partners do I want to work with, it's, are they making the majority of their money selling me the module that I have the most value in? If the answer to that is yes, you should buy it from them. But if they make the majority of their money trying to do these add-ons or other things, that is not where their primary R&D goes, you probably shouldn't. So that's kind of the root of the question.
Got
in
it.
my mind.
Okay. All right. So to broaden that sort of that topic then, and Jason, we'll let you go first this time. What common mistakes do distributors make when modernizing legacy systems?
Man, the first one is, well, I'll comment about something that I'm seeing.
Yeah, go ahead.
More generally. In our world, in the commerce platform world, Gartner and Forrester are pretty much the independent agencies who analyze the major players. Well, what's really interesting is when you really get into the distributor e-commerce landscape, it's a whole bunch of names that are not on that Gartner and Forrester Magic Quadrant. They're just not on there. And so one of the challenges we've seen is a whole bunch of companies who do not major in e-commerce going out and asking, their friend Bob, who should I use? And they end up with some small technology that really is not modern, that really doesn't solve all of their core use cases, but it's fast, cheap, and Bob said it's good. So it's a little bit of the combination between just buying what the household names are on the Gartner Magic Quadrant and ending up with something that is really not future ready, and trying to find that kind of Goldilocks middle scenario.
Dave, over to you. What common mistakes do you see distributors make when they're modernizing legacy systems?
Yeah, well, I certainly see the ones that Jason just pointed out, for sure. I think another one comes down to the actual act of modernizing itself. When you've made that decision to modernize as opposed to replace. And I think it's one is just placing a new UI over the top of the stack, because yes, you might get some types of infrastructure benefits and usability advantages, but it really doesn't get a distributor any closer to that modern platform that they want, that's going to support their integration needs and the new capabilities they need to support their growth strategy. And I think the other is underestimating the time and the cost it's going to take to complete the job. Depending upon the vintage of the system you're trying to modernize, there's a very good chance that the principal developers who worked on it are retired and that the code's not very well documented. So harvesting all the logic and translating those algorithms into new services is going to be incredibly challenging to get right.
You're right. Honest to God, I think that's probably the one thing that is overestimated in terms of underestimated in terms of level of effort, is all of your old logic, all of your old customer data, getting that into a more modern system. There's a whole bunch of work there that's usually underestimated. I'm not trying to scare people away. It's something that I think brands need to do, but it kind of sucks.
So let's talk about AI for a couple minutes. And we're trying not to make everything about AI, but you can't avoid it either, right? And so obviously you need good data, right? That's one thing that's consistent with AI to old technologies, is it's still garbage in, garbage out, even though AI can help, right? So how important is a unified data strategy before you invest in AI? Jason, we'll start with you, and then Dave, I'd like to get your thoughts. How do you go about it?
Well, I think it's kind of a bit obvious to tell people that the quality of the data that you have in your system, the better the AI can be applied. I think that's absolutely true. And I don't think that's kind of on the minds. I think everybody already acknowledges that is true.
Okay.
And it's not a debate that's even worth having. What the conversation I would have is around what are the things that need to be on the top of the list for considerations with AI. And to me, it's around data security. The fact in the world where we're going, agentic commerce is what's next, and Shopware happens to be leading the pack in a lot of ways with our thinking and our product in agentic commerce. And when we show it to merchants, the one thing they keep saying is, "Tell me about security. Who has access to this information? What are you doing with it? Is this data and information being shared back publicly with the LLMs to make a competitor smarter?" So I think distributors look at AI both as a huge unlock, but a huge risk as to how they can do controlled experiments to move the ball forward, because they don't want to be left behind.
Got it. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I actually watched a video yesterday by our IBM engineers presenting at our conference, talking about how there's going to be all these agents running around and they all need their own credentials, and how you're going to manage that, right?
Yep. They all
So,
need their own credentials. Either going to use yours and have
right,
access to all your personal information,
right.
or they're going to create new entities, which means you're going to have more licenses and more software that you're using that are just
Yeah.
fake people.
Yeah. So, Dave, let's go over to you. How important is unified data strategy before investing in AI? And I guess related to that, it feels like if you solve some of the other issues around your ERP to begin with, you probably would have addressed a lot of this, and you're more ready for AI. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I do. I'll go back. You had mentioned at the beginning. You mentioned garbage in, garbage out, and I think I'll use a distributor's warehouse as a metaphor for addressing the question. If your warehouse is disorganized, if things aren't labeled, things are all over the place, investing in a new WMS isn't going to fix your problem. It's just going to send you to the wrong place faster, right? So you need to clean up your warehouse first, then you put it in the WMS, and at that point, the system will take your warehouse operations to the next level. And AI is the same idea. If your data is all over the place, well, Jason was talking about like the system of truths, system of records, right? Well, if your data is all over the place, like which is your system of record? In the event of conflicting information, should I believe the ERP system or the CRM system? So making sure that you have one clean and comprehensive source of truth is going to produce more reliable AI insights.
Got it. Okay. And where do you see distributors getting the most practical value from AI today, Dave? And then Jason, I'll turn it over to you in a minute.
I think it's the leaning out of workflows. One thing that I've been told repeatedly by distributors is that it's getting increasingly difficult to attract and retain people. They can't win by just throwing people at problems. So they're asking us to help us win with technology. So with AI, we can significantly lean out processes, keystrokes, mouse clicks, so that distributors can get the most out of the people that they do have. We can get the employees' hands off their keyboards and in front of their customers and their vendors. Like, when you think about it, like how many distributors actually have the time to monitor the performance of their vendors, holding them accountable for late and inaccurate shipments, driving better terms and prices? AI can free up distributors to reinvest their time in these incredibly important processes.
Got it. And Jason, where are you seeing distributors getting the most practical value from AI?
Yeah, I'm going to double click on what Dave said because I think it's aligned. Again, going back to, so one of the things I recognize with most of the distributors we work with, there's nobody in the organization with e-commerce as their only job. They might have it as part of one of four jobs, but it's not their only job. Okay, they either do customer success, they do sales, they do warehouse, whatever, but it's also e-commerce, digital. And so when you unpack the statement I made earlier about 2/3 of time by B2B sellers for distributors is spent not selling, it's in 10 hours a week in administrative tasks that we've overburdened these people with. It is 6 hours or more of service-related tasks, and it's 3 hours a week of travel, okay? And so how do you use AI to automate the rebuys that happen inside of your business, which is the lion's share of the transactions? How do you create rules and flows that allow basically agility at the fingertips of the sales rep to more quickly deal with transactions without having to deal with the administrative work of updating 4 systems? How do you get a digital sales room or a sales agent utility that allows you to virtually do a sales appointment as opposed to in physical driving or flying to their location? So to me, you take a look at the problem from an efficiency view and you say, how do we win back the times of our most expensive and productive resources as the first mission of AI? And that's how we're applying it at Shopware. And frankly, it's resonating and it's working.
Okay, so speaking of Shopware specifically, so what role should e-commerce play in a distributor's technology stack, and how should distributors think about composable commerce versus traditional?
Well, what I love about distributors is they're already commercially minded. I mean, their whole goal of life is to be a middleman that's really efficient, that knows how to move product, right? And that highly aligns beautifully to e-commerce. And so, I think you got to go back all the way to when I kind of started in e-commerce with the rise of the .com. And essentially, in that moment, it created distrust between the sales team and the digital team. And so I'll get to your question in a minute about the role of e-commerce. What happened was, when I lived through this, is brands were saying, or distributors were saying, that's an e-commerce order, the rep doesn't get any credit. And so
right.
it effectively created channel conflict inside of the four walls. I think this is a moment where the role of e-commerce is to say, put their arm around the sales team and say, we're going to give you new digital tooling that's going to make you more efficient. We want you to embrace the web and digital. And when we do so, it will not make your world smaller. In fact, it'll make it bigger. You're getting more time and, creating programs that incent digital, because that's the future. And then how do you create these agents that essentially automate a lot of that workflow so the rep then spends more time selling? So to me, this is that big moment where e-commerce has the ability to win back the field.
Yeah.
And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, no, I think that's happening. I'm seeing that across distribution as the conflict is easing. So, Dave, what's the role of the ERP, and how is the role of the ERP evolving in modern technology stacks, especially with the advent of AI? I mean, the ERP's mission and role and priority is bigger than ever, I think.
Absolutely. I think ERP, even though we keep calling it a system of record, I think it's actually evolving from being a system of record to being a system of action, moving from providing information to providing insights by using AI. You think about an ERP system, and just think about like the grids and grids and grids of information that get displayed to your employees. And now think about one of your employees staring at one of those grids. How long do you think it'll take that person to glean the key meaning away from it? How confident are you that they'll even pull away the meaning that you would want them to? And the problem amplifies when you have three people staring at the same grids and three different interpretations. So modern ERP systems are using AI to deliver clean, consistent, reliable takeaways to your employees so they can spend more of their time transacting business and less of their time staring at screens.
And how do you? And we'll start with you this time, Jason. How do you organize to support a modern tech stack? What are the organizational capabilities you need? And is that a set of skill sets or boxes on an org chart? How do you think about designing your organization for success with a modern tech stack?
Man, that is a really good question, and it definitely depends on the organization. But when we sell into organizations that are distributors, the first thing we like to do is to go on site and walk the warehouse and really understand the rhythm of the business, how it operates, who does what. And then with our agency partners, we talk about how do you design the future state architecture around your business that you have today and might need. So it's a bit fluid. But as I started the conversation, everything flows from the source of truth in our scenario, which is the ERP. And then how do you build agility around it? And how do you build tools and functions that allow you to take advantage of it, what you already use today? So I think the answer is really understanding what they use and why they use it, what makes them different and special, and then how the agency comes in and designs a system that achieves that outcome. But it's way more, it's not here's a box, everyone fits in it. I think that's kind of simple B2C. Yeah. This is very different.
What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think, since the question is really around a modern tech stack, let's just take on-prem out of play and maybe focus the answer on a cloud-based system, because the two require very different sets of technical capabilities. So the two big skills I see is, number one, you need to be proficient at mining your ERP data. Outside of your inventory and your AR, your data is the third most valuable non-people related asset that you have. The ability to fully leverage that asset sets distributors apart from their peers. And I think that the second is the ability to create IP, utilizing the configuration tools available in the ERP system. These tools can vary greatly in terms of complexity. I mean, some of this stuff is drag and drop. Some of it, you actually have to write source code. And of course, you can outsource the creation of this IP to your ERP vendor, partners, or third-party consultants. But if you build this capacity in-house, you just can't beat the speed to value.
Got it. Okay. And you mentioned, I think to a modern tech stack is probably a cloud environment, right? So what can distributors expect from cloud ERP platforms today that they couldn't expect 5 years ago?
Yeah, I would say a handful of things. I would say performance, scalability, reliability, security, and configurability. The available technology right now is incredible. And also our ability as software developers to do what we believe is best for the application without having to worry about whether our customer base as a whole has the capabilities to assimilate those changes. I think it really removes the shackles from us. As an example, if we think we can get more performance from one of our services by introducing a Mongo database, we can build it, hand it off to our DevOps team to build the pipeline, who will partner with the cloud services team to deploy and monitor. Done. Can you imagine if back in the on-prem days, and we told our customers on the upcoming release, we're going to need you to stand up a Mongo server next to your SQL server. Very low possibility that would fly. So we'd never have done that. And so now we can focus our efforts first and foremost on cloud. Improvements, the improvements in these areas like, performance, scalability, reliability, security, and configurability have accelerated to unprecedented levels.
And Jason, what are the remaining biggest integration challenges between e-commerce platforms and ERP systems?
Well, I don't think it's not a problem with P21, but a lot of these, a lot of the e-commerce, a lot of the kind of older vintage, I like that term, ERP systems aren't really built on APIs that are kind of built to work with other systems, and it almost forces you to buy either their version of an e-commerce module or something that has worked with it before, and that essentially puts you in a doom loop of not being able to modernize because you're kind of forced into a small ecosystem that isn't taking advantage of modern tech. So that problem, again, just to state the obvious, does not exist with P21 and our friends at Epicor. And so yeah, that'd be the problem.
And Dave, what integration patterns work best when ERP connects to not just e-commerce but CRM and analytics platforms?
Sure. So to start, I would assume for this that all systems have an API. That's going to be our basic foundation of the integration. But from there, I think the answer would differ a little bit for each of these specific integrations. For e-commerce, I think Jason attests to this, speed is priority one. So I think you want all real-time calls with an emphasis on pulling cached data wherever possible. Most e-commerce data can be cached, with the exception of maybe your sales pricing, because like the combination of customers times items times pricing breaks often introduces too many permutations to be feasible, and possibly availability due to its volatility. For CRM, I would use an asynchronous approach, meaning as a user, I'm going through salesforce.com, I'm updating customers and contacts, creating quotes and logging calls. I'd recommend spawning off the calls to a separate process and giving the user their cursor back immediately so they can keep on working. And then for analytics, I would choose a method that would allow the push of batches of data to the analytics system at scheduled intervals throughout the day. I'd set the intervals by type of information, like the most volatile information, having the shortest cycles of update.
Got it. Okay. And what are the biggest technology adoption challenges you're seeing among distributors?
I think the biggest challenge that I see is delaying adoption because the distributor is trying to run and grow their business. And sometimes they'll have a difficult time making the time for technology. As an example, a common occurrence is for distributors to select a new ERP solution, including all the business intelligence and analytics tools available. I think this could also even include e-commerce, with an eye towards using these tools to effectively grow their business. Great decision, but what winds up happening is that the distributor enters the implementation process and at some point decides, you know what, let's focus on the ERP in phase one, then we'll get to like the BI in phase two. Now the problem I see is now we're 2 years past the buying decision, customer's been long since live, and they never found the time to double back and implement BI, the phase two project. It's all still sitting on a shelf, not helping their business grow as they initially envisioned. So I think it's really important for distributors to understand where is the ROI coming from on your ERP conversion, and prioritize the items in the initial implementation, because sometimes you never find the time to go back.
Got it. And Jason, let's talk about standing up e-commerce. I think, Dave, you had mentioned early on a quote from the Harvard Business Review about how companies that adopted e-commerce added 15 or something percent sales. What is it that differentiates those distributors that helps them successfully scale digital commerce versus those that struggle, Jason?
Yeah, well, I completely agree with that point that was made by Dave. The reality of an e-commerce platform, shopware included, are incredibly powerful. They can enable all sorts of new experiences, new workflows, new testing and learning and experimentation. And the ones that really lean into that as an opportunity, that says, I'm going to try and find a way to grow this channel. I'm going to try and find a way to include our sales rep in the process. I talked about a merchant. I talked about an example how sales reps are adopting this digital sales room capability. We have one client of ours who, they sell via a Coke and a joke, which means they show up with a Coke, they talk for a bit, they get the reorder, and they maybe kick the drum to hear how much oil's in there. They sell it and they walk away. Well, taking advantage of tools like a digital sales rooms allows those sales reps to still do that transaction, still have that relationship, still sell with a Coke and a joke, but do it through modern means. And so those are the type of companies that I think are experiencing above average growth. Just as an aside, Shopware is growing at 41% last year. The market is growing at 10. Okay. So we're taking share, and it's not that Shopware is amazing. It's that the clients we choose that are choosing to work with us have this view, like, how do I really digital enable our business? And it's some of those examples I talked about.
Got it. And Dave, how should distributors think about ERP modernization versus replacement?
Yeah, so I think while it might seem intuitive to evolve an asset you have versus signing up to implement something brand new, having done this with multiple products in my career, modernization is incredibly difficult. I did a little poking around for some statistics prior to this webinar. Somewhere between 70 to 80% of modernization projects either fail outright or significantly miss the mark in terms of the output they produce or the time it took to get there. Only 20 to 30% fell in the bucket of clear success. This requires a combination of highly skilled technical resources who, as I mentioned earlier, not only understand the new technology, but can effectively mine the old system. You need business analysts who can effectively translate the needs of the business to the technical team. You absolutely need the buy-in and support from the very top execs down. So, from an evangelization perspective, I think, and also from a significant funding perspective. So modernizing can become the most expensive, time-consuming, and risky approach for a distributor.
Okay, and we have a question from the audience. It's pretty broad, so let's see if we can interpret it in a way that fits the discussion. Ken wants to know, where do systems like PIMS fit in? So who wants to take a crack at that?
Yeah, sure. I would say that it's an important part of both your e-commerce as well as your ERP system. Having that enriched content, obviously it's going to help your B2B efforts, because just like you're on Amazon, you want reviews, you need that additional information, you want the specs, you want the sizes, you want the pictures, you want all of this stuff. But it can also help in like a counter environment, or you're on the phone with a customer and they're asking you all these same questions, and the speed that you can provide those answers can be greatly enhanced with a well-executed PIM system, PIM integration.
Yep. And I'll just pile on just a little bit. I love PIMs, especially for the right use cases. And it all depends on how many different places you're sending that data and how big your catalog is. If the answer to those two is it's a lot and our catalog's huge, you probably need a PIM. And there's a lot of great ones. PIMcore is a really great one, InRiver and the like. So again, the conversation at the beginning of this is around an e-commerce platform that's compatible with an ERP, The same thing. Find a PIM system that's compatible with your ecom and your ERP. The better those systems work together, the more efficient your organization will be to extract value from it.
Got it. Okay. Jason, how do APIs and partner ecosystems change how distributors build their tech stacks?
Well, it's a huge deal. I mean, if you're buying this kind of goes back to the conversation around the vintage of the product. Most core technologies that are not 15 to 20 years old, they're an API first organization. They've built out systems that allow you to utilize APIs to bring the experience and the content into where you want to do your job. Dave talked a lot about it early on around this best of breed versus best of suite. If you're buying best of breed, you have to be able to take the value of these other systems and put it where you want to manage it, which is the power of APIs. So it plays a huge deal for us. We're a 6-year-old platform. API first is not a hobby. It's a mindset.
Yeah, it's just part of the architecture, right?
It's how you build products.
Yeah, right. And Dave, let's get back to AI for a second. How does Epicor see AI being embedded into ERP workflows?
Yeah, I think there are two ways we commonly embed it. The first through the use of agentic AI. In other words, interacting with AI agents in the application to request information, to do work. Show me a list of incoming POs that are due today. Approve order number 1000, create a quote for Kelly Supply for 100 feet of cable. These functions make the routine tasks that your employees need to do easier and faster. And the second is predictive AI, meaning AI to forecast what's likely going to happen based upon the analysis of data. So an example might be I'm entering an order line and I get a list of items that go together with that item. Now you might say that functionality has been in ERP systems for decades. And I would say that AI makes it better. The old way analyzes sales history and links items together that have been sold, together X or more times. Well, what about new items? What about items that have never been sold before but should? AI can very quickly look across broad swaths of your items, across dozens of characteristics, and kind of under the covers, behind the scenes, create this scatter plot and correlate the data clusters as going together. AI will see what your employees and linear algorithms cannot, and do so very quickly.
Excellent. Okay, Jason, we're going to close with a question for you. Because based on your Digital River experience, what lessons apply to distributors modernizing today?
What lessons? I think I'm going to close the same way I opened. Finding something with a relative. So let's see. What lessons apply to distributors today? The first, actually, I'll answer it a little differently. One of the things we're really seeing as it relates to people who are forward thinking about AI is it's actually frozen the market in a way. And it's because the rate and pace of change is so dramatic that you have to architect your solution around, hey, the world is going to continue to change. There will be more agents. There will be more autonomous agents. So really architecting something for something that's really, really dynamic is a much harder problem than they've seen in the past. So finding the right agencies that are going to be a trail guide for you and kind of keep you up to speed on the latest and greatest, and architecting a system that's able to adapt to a really, really dynamic market. Those would be the two pieces of advice I would share to distributors.
Dave, you want to add anything to that?
I think Jason nailed it.
Good. Okay, guys, please hold on for just a minute. So I want to thank everybody for attending today. And then let's see. Talk about a couple of upcoming programs. On February 18th, we have a Distribution Leaders series, and this title of this one is E-commerce Platform Imperatives: The Distribution Leader's Guide to Build, Acquire, or Overhaul. We'll have Chandra Williams, who's the Development Manager and Enterprise Technology and Integration Strategy Lead for Diversitech Corporation, accompanied by AJ Brenner, who's Director of E-commerce and Digital at ARG Industrial, and Ian Gresham, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Brady Plus. That episode is brought to you by Epicor and Oro Commerce, so we'll look forward to that conversation. And then back to our subject matter expert series, Alex Chalsofsky, who's a terrific economist, absolutely fascinating. We'll be talking about the economy and geopolitics, key insights for distribution leaders in 2026. This is an update on a talk he gave a few months ago with a lot of new information. He's the president of 3DM Consulting. That's brought to you by Infor. So we're looking forward to that conversation as well. But for now, Jason, Dave, thanks for the fascinating conversation. I learned a lot. I know our audience did too, and I hope to see you on a future program with Distribution Strategy Group. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you both.